What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Fresh CFO Fridays. It's September 1st. I don't know about you, right? But it's September. I feel like here in Indiana, we had summer for like 2 weeks. And it was the last 2 weeks of August. And now we're getting into fall. College football is back. It is going on right now. So it's welcome everybody. Welcome to another Fresh CFO Fridays. I'm really excited about today. Today we're going to be talking. I think the stream is messed up. Here we go. Here we go. But hopefully this is showing well. If you're on the video and on the stream, just drop in the comments that you can actually see it and everything's going well. Always with StreamYard, man. I do these things. I need to start doing it. I've done. I think it's like my 10th one, and I do these things, and sometimes the technology works, and then sometimes you get errors, right? Like it's just technology. But yeah, welcome today. If this is your first time coming to a Fresh CFO Fridays, basically bi-weekly, twice a month. Sometimes I'll do it more, sometimes I'll do it less. But I talk about topics that are important to accounting, finance, FP&A, CFO, and fractional CFO professionals. I myself, hey, what's up from Brazil? What's up, O? I run a fractional CFO, a global fractional CFO and advisory service company called Fresh FP&A. So that is what Fresh FP&A is. But let's jump right into the topic. So the top risk mitigation strategies for fractional CFOs, as you can well imagine, when you think about the macro global environment that people in, risk is inherent, right? Like there is no such thing as a business. There is no such thing as an industry. There is no such thing as any business that doesn't have risk inside of it. But it shouldn't be a major obstacle to your business. And I think this is where when we work with a lot of CEOs, business owners, and founders, right? And one of the most important risks that they just don't identify, and a lot of them just don't have that visibility into, is just the financial risk side. So for me, when you think about risk inside of your business and how you can provide value as a fractional CFO, obviously the first place that you want to land is within the finance organization, right? Then you can expand. I think a lot of times, and when I say finance organization, everybody, I mean the overall finance organization. Accounting is part of the finance organization. FP&A is part of the finance organization, but you have to start overall and then work your way down. But one of the first strategies I want to talk about for those fractional CFOs and risk mitigation with your clients is the first one is you have to identify, assess, and prioritize the risk, right? The thing about it in the finance organization, and taking my experience with over 2 decades in leading high growth businesses, starting off in accounting, finance, FP&A, financial leadership, I've done the whole gambit of it, right? You have to identify the core risk, right? What are the core risks in the business? So when you're looking at, I think one of the most risky areas, and this is me, everybody. I should have a public accounting like auditor hat that I put on, but this is me putting on my accounting hat, right? Starting off at Big Four and Ernst and Young. I will show everybody my branding. Right now, the branding is Fresh FP&A, but um, one of the most inherent risks is cash, right? Like that is probably one place to start, right? And if you got, we have clients, international clients, we have local clients here in the U.S. We have clients over in Asia. That is always one of the first inherent risk in any organization is around cash, right? Whether you're having checks or whether you're doing wires, what are the segregation of duties? What are the processes? What are the controls? What is the frameworks? What could go wrong inside the organization? So really doing a comprehensive assessment and then prioritizing those risks, right? Because the thing about it is with risk, right? Some of those risks are like, really low risk and some of them are really, really high, right? And some of them can have a really big material impact on your organization and some of them don't. So the first strategy you need to have in working with your CEOs, working with your clients in risk mitigation is just getting a baseline. Identify, assess, and prioritize those risks. This is really the first step. And start in the finance organization first, right? Start in the finance. And then once you kind of have a great risk assessment, you identify the risk, you assess them, you prioritize them within the finance organization, then you can expand outside into the business, inside of the operations. Because let me tell there's a lot of risk inside the business that is sitting in sales, that's sitting in marketing, that's sitting in operations, that's sitting in client success. So that's really the first strategy you need to do. Number two is treat risk, and when you're assessing your risk, make sure you're being diagnosed about it and you have a feedback loop around it, right? So a lot of times people think, okay, like it's the whole like put the band-aid on it and it'll go away, right? That necessarily doesn't happen. So after you have that first strategy one where you kind of landed in the finance organization, you're identifying, you're assessing and prioritizing those risks. That strategy number two is you can't just like implement these processes, implement these controls, do these segregation of duties, and just like set it and forget it, right? Do not do that. Make sure in that strategy number two that you're putting in a cadence around when you're reassessing those risks, right? So, for example, one of the things that we worked with on a client was they were doing a lot of paper checks. I don't know, it's just one of the owner, the CEO, the CEO of the business. He always just felt comfortable doing everything in checks. I think it comes back to the whole like checkbook mentality. And I'm aging myself, but I remember balancing a checkbook in high school. Like I remember that was like a class. I also remember home ec where you actually like make cakes and you like you actually like made food in school. Yes, that's how old I am. But it came back to this check, and he was constantly like, he did everything, right? And he's running a multi-million dollar software company. You going to his seed stage right now, so still pretty early in the life cycle of the business, but it has absolutely exploded, right? It's a text-based software company that he primarily works with a lot of automotive dealers. And basically, when you get those text responses on your phone about your service requests or when your car's ready or you need to bring your car into service, that's what they do. And he's just like, Chris, I feel comfortable doing this. And I'm just like, well, that's a big inherent risk inside the business, right? And part of what we were going through is like, well, who has access to that? How are you confirming that the checks get cleared, right? How are you making sure that you have all these controls around what you want to do versus you can limit all of that. And this is where we work directly with him and got him comfortable to say, hey, if we have a more electronic workflow that we could have, right? You have all these different steps, right? Like you're having to write the checks. You have your accounting person. They have an internal bookkeeper that comes in and brings the checks, and he has to go through it and sign. And he has to. It's a very time consuming, labor intensive, and very risky process that he was doing. And one of the things that we recommended was, hey, here's an electronic process that you can leverage through Chase. Here's the technologies that they have. Here's fraud prevention. Here's all these controls that you will have. And by the way, it'll cut the time that you're taking time to do this. It'll cut it by 75%, right? It'll cut the time so you're more efficient and you'll have more time focused on it. Plus, there's a lot more checks and balances that we can have, and there's a lot more technology solutions that we can have. So we piloted that with him and got him over to ultimately having all vendor payments, any ad hoc payments. We actually got him comfortable and capitalize on rewards and how much he was spending on a credit facility with his bank and the credit cards and things like that, and it really helped migrate that risk, right? But this was the whole point of and story I'm sharing around this is because it's a prime example of where you identify, you assess, you prioritize, and that second step is you have to put policies and procedures around it and test and make sure that it's valid, right? I think a lot of times fractional CFOs, right? We come in, we make our advisory recommendations, and we're like, okay, here's my advisory recommendation. I'm passing off the baton to you, business owner, CEO, or founder. You need to go ahead and make that change, right? Instead of keeping that feedback loop. So that's that strategy number two, making sure that you're not just setting and forgetting those controls, those segregation of duties, and you're making that feedback loop around it. The third one is I honestly feel, and this is me going back to my public accounting days, right? And my first twilight of my career in corporate and public accounting was you have to monitor that risk over time, right? I think a great way of doing this as well too is at least every 6 months, do a survey of the risk areas in the finance organization, right? Like you've implemented the same way that we go implement strategies and tactics inside of a business, whether it's budgeting, whether it's forecasting, whether it's cash flow planning, or whether it's, you're looking at entering new markets, or you're maximizing your gross profit, or you're trying to increase your cash, whatever those metrics that you're trying to improve, you need to take a same risk base and monitor that as well too. So the same way that from a financial perspective, we check into the business and we do maybe a quarterly or a semi-annual rolling forecast, we need to take that same rigor and same due diligence and methodology inside of assessing the risk inside of a business, right? And the thing about it is like one thing that we know, right? We've had this year. We're already we're already 8 months through the year, right? We've had banks fail. We have interest rates in the U.S. that are at all-time crazy level high, right? We've got treasury operations. We got this continued, talent of people leaving. We got remote versus hybrid. We got a lot of things going on, right? So as you look at that overall risk that you're looking at the business and that strategy, you want to make sure that you're having those touch points around it as well too. So I think that's really, really, really important, is to make sure you have an overall strategy around your risk mitigation, right? And for those fractional CFOs and building your business, and the value you want to have is 100% going to start in the finance organization, and primarily it's going to start in the accounting operations, right? So this is where, having that expertise, that understanding of accounting, maybe not necessarily doing the work. Some fractional CFOs, you do the work and you land there and you're like, Chris, I'm already doing this because I'm a fractional CFO and I'm doing bookkeeping for the business. Totally fine. You have that comprehensive understanding, but start there. And that strategy number three is like, once you have a good place around that and you feel like you have a great strategy, you have tactics, you have metrics that you're measuring success, and you have execution plans, then you can broaden that outside the organization. So you can start looking at other functional elements of it, right? Typically, one of the first places that I start in high growth businesses, we work with software, we work with technology, we work with retail, e-commerce, pharma, and renewable companies, and other high growth businesses. Is it's always a risk element in that sales handoff, from it's like lead to sales handoff to contract execution to finance, right? Those different points of crossing over in the business, I've just always seen is a big risk element, right? The reason why I share that as a big risk element is because those handoffs, you got people in different mindsets that's handing it off, right? And typically when we get to finance, right, we've all, maybe you say that, drop in the comments if this has happened to you, but it's happened to me plenty of times, right? You get that contract, right? And you're like, the contract doesn't even add out. The dates are wrong. We don't even sell this product. What is net negative 15? Like that's not even a payment term, right? The subscription dates start wrong. The dollar amounts don't add up. You get that piece of it, and it's duly executed. The customer signed it and the CRO have signed off on it, right? That is risk already, right? And typically that handoff between marketing, sales, and finance, you want to be more proactive in that. So that's another golden nugget that I want to share with everybody, is as you've identified and kind of set the vision, the strategy, the tactics, the metrics, the milestone, the execution plan. You take that strategic level view with vision all the way down to tactical execution around the finance organization. One of my best places to start to add business value, right? Not just financial value in the business, but now you're a fractional CFO and you're saying, "Hey, I'm a provide business value for you." Go look at the contract management process. Go work inside of your sales organization that you're working within the business, right? Typically for me, some of our clients, they do have VPs of sales, they do have sales leaders. We work closely with them. Some of our businesses, more of our smaller businesses, they don't have that. But I have a great network of fractional CHROs and chief sales officers that work with these organizations so we can get a lot of that same risk assessment rhythm on the sales side of the organization. So, and for me, when you think about this, right, you see the countless stories out there of businesses. I mean, I was looking at one. It's like almost like daily, you get a new business that popped up that got some $150 million investment, and it's just like, did nobody go through and just ask the right questions? Like, I was reading one story where a lady, she was like fraudulently saying the number of users she had to Chase because she wanted to blow up her evaluation, and she got caught, right? And I'm like, this is Chase Bank, right? Like, you didn't just go in and say, hey, I want to trace and like, let's look at some of your customer records, right? Let's trace it all the way down, right? Let's look at customer records. When did they sign up? When do they make first payments, and just like trace those things through, because I can tell you when you go through and think about those processes at a very in-depth level, and like I said, in those three strategies, right? The first strategy, number one, in recap, you're identifying, assessing, and prioritizing that risk. Strategy number two is, you're being proactive as you've identified them. You're making sure you have that feedback. You're making sure you're connecting onto it. And strategy number three is making sure you're providing a comprehensive plan, that you're checking in on those risks. At least I would say, in some businesses, maybe more frequently, depending upon, when you look at those risks and how many high risk, high material error elements you have, at least semi-annually, you're revisiting that strategy. And then to add to that strategy number three, you're branching inside the business as well too. So you're expanding outside the finance organization and getting into the operations and business. And one of those golden nuggets, go work with the salespeople. Superpower. I think that's one of the best partners I've ever had in my career. That's one of the best partners that we have here at Fresh FP&A that my team works with. All of my fractional CFOs across that help support Fresh FP&A. That's one of their great business partners, and it's always been that way. So yeah, so that is the risk mitigation. If you've enjoyed this conversation and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe, follow us, like us on all of our socials. You can check us out at Fresh FPA, FRESAFPA on all of our socials. Make sure to go follow us. If you really enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and follow us on our YouTube page. Like I said, every 2 weeks, I come up with a topic. We come up with something fresh, because we're bringing that fresh view on finance. So, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate everybody listening and coming in. We're Labor Day weekend. So, for all those people that have Monday off, enjoy it. For me, I'm going to enjoy it because it's like the last weekend before our pool closes in my housing edition. So, and typically when the pools close, right? That's like the official. It wasn't like whatever date when like the summer solstice is done, right? When pools close, like when neighborhood pools or me growing up, when pools closed, that was like the official end of summer, right? Like that one was when summer was over. I think now the toll gate for me is once like college football, NFL football. Yes, this is like American football, not like soccer football. But once that starts, that's where it's like it's officially fall time. So I hope everybody has a great Labor Day. I hope you have a great weekend. This is September 1st, so we got one more month left in the quarter. Let's crush it. Let's hit all those goals. Let's make that impact. Let's put people before profit. Let's put purpose over praise, and let's put impact over income. Thank you so much. And as I always end, keep pushing, never settle, and the best is yet to come. Let's get it. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend.